Enge, and this is Dungeoneer. Today we're talking about launching a new campaign, the natural enemy of getting a job, having a partner, and, of course, f***ing babies. Not that anyone would want a baby, I mean, these drunk little machines have zero respect. We keep them from yeeting themselves into the abyss hundreds of times a day, but when we just need 3 to 4 hours once a week for a game, how do they thank us for it? By shitting their pants and trying to swallow our dice. No. Bad baby. You're a natural one, Graydon. A natural one. Starting a new campaign can be a monumental task, full of excitement and terror. The enormity of everything you have to invent, the world, the NPCs, the adventure, not to mention the amount of rules you have to jam into your brain to feel adequately prepared. It really puts the anal into analysis paralysis. On the other hand, you get to invent a world, people to inhabit it, and set the course for the PC's adventure. But like they say, how do you eat an elephant? Slow braise over 4 to 6 hours with onions, carrots, and garlic with homemade beef bone broth and a nice red wine. Scrumptious. And I'm not gonna try to hit this with the optimism stick. There's a lot. So much I had to split this into 2 different videos. So today let's talk about everything you need to get to Session 0. Next week, Session 0 and beyond. Here's what's on the menu today, besides elephant. Pitching your game, premise, tone, and homebrew versus pre-packaged campaigns. But first, let's talk about learning the rules, the most intimidating part of learning how to GM. Not just because there's hundreds of pages of them, but because players are agents of chaos, and you're constantly gonna have to make shit up on the fly that neither you nor the developers could have ever dreamed of.
I turn into a triceratops.
As a GM, it's up to you to be fairly well versed in the rules, but it's okay if you don't know them perfectly. Do your best, but you'll learn as you go. You'll figure out what you need when Kevin asks for the 100th time how many dice a greater healing potion has. Or when he tries to tell you his wizard can cast flight and invisibility at the same time. Those are both concentration spells, Kevin. Sorry, you fall 200 feet into the open mouth of a shark. Crunch, crunch. Also, DM screens aren't, as I always assumed, only to hide your fudge die rolls. You can fill them with the info you always forget, like healing potions for Kevin, or my least favorite thing, shopping prices. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love a shopping episode. I get to invent and play crazy shopkeepers, do a dozen voices, and figure out what sort of deviants my players are when they decide to negotiate for like 24 tambourines with what is obviously a mob front. I just hate having to look up prices of shit. I mean, it's 1,000 gold pieces for a toothbrush. That'll teach you to try to have some fun. And when it comes to magic item prices, 5e was like, suck 'em a dick. Some wonderful people on Reddit created the sane magic items list, but a lot of that stuff is totally bonkers. So now I have to figure out how much an elixir of Merkin growth costs? I don't know. Talk to me after the game and bring bribes. It's always good to bribe the dungeon master. A DM screen makes it so all the crap I always forget is at my fingertips. I use this cool one with replaceable sleeves so I can make my own inserts. As a graphic designer, nothing else anyone does is gonna be good enough. I mean, nothing I'm gonna do is gonna be good enough either, so we're equal. DM screen inserts I think aren't good enough, available soon on Patreon. And hey, Patreon members can suggest improvements. What do you always keep on hand? Together, we can make the ultimate cheat sheet. Pitching your game. Often what drives people to start a new campaign is an exciting, new, high-concept idea like you're all students at a school that teaches you how to be an adventurer. You're members of a ship's crew sailing the seas of friendship. Or, and this is real, you're a ragtag band of raccoons trying to make a name for yourself in the high-stakes world of underground street racing. Yes, Crash Pandas is not just a wonderful fever dream. And sure, it's more made for one-shots, but hey, if they can make the actual Fast and Furious into a huge franchise, I'm sure you could find a way to level up some raccoons. Once you have an idea that interests you, it's time to reach out to your friends and make a campaign pitch, which I get the feeling a lot of people don't do anymore. You even pitch, bro? I've heard a few people talk about how they got to Session 0 and the players didn't agree with the concept of the game, or don't want to play the chosen system, or don't want to play because of an element essential to that game. How do you not want to pull heists when I invited you to a Blades in the Dark campaign? Or how do you not want to deal with eldritch horrors if I invited you to Call of Cthulhu? Or how do you not want to be a goth edgelord feasting on the flesh of the innocent if you're invited to a game of Pokemon? How do people get players to a Session 0 these days? Tell me about your experience down in the comments because I'm genuinely curious. No, curious isn't a big enough word. My mind boggles. Maybe this is a lost art, but you should pitch the game you want to run. or pitch a few games and let the players decide. But before you get people in a room eating Funyuns and making characters, they should know 3 things. What game system you'll be playing, D&D, Powered by the Apocalypse, Laser Ponies, what the concept of the game is, and what the tone of the game is, and when you'll be playing. If you don't know any one of these things, why are you going through the onboarding process? Ugh, that's a very corporate way to say that. How about, why are you wasting everyone's time? Game system. If they have a problem with violence, they probably shouldn't be playing D&D. If they have a problem with cult stuff, they probably shouldn't be playing Call of Cthulhu. If they have a problem with raccoons in the Los Angeles underground drag racing scene, they shouldn't be playing Crash Pandas. Sorry, there's just no way anyone could have a problem with that. It's the perfect game. End of story. I will not be taking questions at this time. Game concept. I'm really good at running what I call big damn heroes games.
Here's the guy who's just in the nick of time. What does that make us?
Big damn heroes, sir.
Ain't we just?
Where the heroes are heroes and they do heroic things for heroic reasons, the action is larger than life, and the drama could make a pit fiend cry. He just loves his sister so much. If someone wants a highly political Game of Thrones style game, or a wonderfully weird Alice in Wonderland acid trip, or a quiet game of farming and selling nuts to local vendors, then trying to pit vendors against each other to get better nut prices.
We don't do that here.
Part of the buy-in of the players is they have to want to play the games that I'm good at running and the games that I enjoy running. I am, after all, another player at the table. And if I'm going to put this much work into it, I want to have some fun too. Not just do your weird Stardew Valley game. Unless orcs are attacking Stardew Valley, different story. Scheduling. If I can only run a game on Sundays starting at 10 a.m., I won't be inviting my local pastor, for many reasons. Mostly because he played once and he's just not into it. Sorry, Tony. That's the ante to get on the list, my friends. You have to be available when I have time. And why waste your time having a session 0 if your friends can't get together regularly? This doesn't mean everyone has to be available at the same time all the time. It can mean, if we plan far enough in advance, can we find one Saturday next month maybe all of us are willing to commit to a game? This seemingly simple task has killed more gaming groups than the dreaded baby. No, I don't want to talk to you until you can think about someone beside yourself. The premise. If you want to run on a high concept premise, it's the first thing you're going to have to flesh out. What are the special rules you're going to feature in this world? A sanity system like Cthulhu? A flashback system like Blades in the Dark? Or exploding dice like Savage Worlds?
My favorite.
Interesting premises are great, but I think most often when people are starting a D&D game, the expectations are more like a band of 5 wankers trying to avoid feelings and personal connection by aimlessly wandering the countryside, killing things, getting loot, and outrunning their past. Featuring sadness and gay stuff. And you don't have to come up with a premise at all. You can hash it all out with your players. You can build the world together. You can do it all as a team. The players will be more invested in the world because they helped create it. This is another great place to use the Golden Enge Award-winning Decima. But that is not for me. I use Allgate, a high-action, swashbuckling world reminiscent of the 1600 to 1750s. So from the musketeer to English Civil War eras to the early days of the golden age of piracy. I love this world, and it's part of the buy-in to be in my game. You can get it all for free at allgaterpg.com. Enjoy! There's also a few house rules there you can have, like our rules for Black Powder, which make it actually fun to play. I always make like this pitch document that I send out and it's all graphic and everything, but that's because I'm a graphic designer. You can just write out, hey, I want to play a D&D game, here's my and then send it off to your friends. And remember, the shorter the better. The difference between a decent writer and a good writer is a good writer will make that short and concise. And I always start off as a very bad writer. Tone. Figuring out the tone of your campaign and communicating that to your potential players is essential. If you want to run a gritty, dark fantasy campaign, and one of your players shows up with Biggie Smaller, the flatulent frog-bent fighter who wields a razor-sharp mango, it's gonna be a problem. Make sure when you're recruiting players, you communicate the tone of your campaign, and don't be afraid to use TV shows and movies. The reason people always say, oh, so like Beastmaster? When they hear about your sword and sorcery campaign is because they need something to ground the idea in their brains. Not because they think you're derivative. I mean, not necessarily, but it is D&D. There's nothing wrong with being derivative. I believe you should be somewhat derivative, but that's a different video. So you could say it's gonna be kind of fun and whimsical like The Hobbit, but with the over-the-top violence and blood of the Fallout TV series, or the dark grittiness of Shadow and Bone, Crow's Bits only, but the fantastic magical world of Harry Potter, or the monster hunting of The Witcher and the musical numbers of Gallivant. I'd fight a Striga to play in that game. Homebrew versus prepackaged campaigns. Neither of these choices makes you a better person. They're equally dope. So, which one to pick? You can have a lot of fun homebrewing your own campaign. I grew up with homebrew, and that's the way I like to do it. It is the juice for me, but it's not for some people. But if that does sound good to you, it can be very satisfying when people start quoting your lore back to you, or even when they just know some other town name that you made up and scribbled on a piece of paper. It's so cool. And since it's my own campaign and campaign world, I want to start it off right. I'll do an intro adventure that really doesn't have anything to do with the characters, but it sets the tone for the world and the campaign, and as the players get to know their characters and each other, I'll come up with adventures during our off time that feed into their backstories and tug at their motivations and throw the tracks down in front of the train as the players tear through the world, higgledy-piggledy. But it is a lot of work, and that's time you could spend keeping Graydon from eating all the Tide Pods. Come on, Graydon, what is this, 2018? What are you gonna do next? Listen to Despacito? Buy some clear jeans? Watch Toys R Us go bankrupt? That's right, Toys R Us doesn't exist and Jeffrey is dead. What are you gonna do? Cry? You one-trick pony. What a big baby. If you don't have the time to create everything, these prepackaged campaigns are great. A book like this can take a year or more to complete. And I hear they're fun. I own them all. Never played them. I have a problem. All you have to do with these is skim them, figure out where the adventure is going, and when the time comes, everything you need is right here. And the more I talk about it, the more I think I'm an idiot for homebrewing my whole life. Like, what the hell? It's all in here? Set a date. I said this before, but I won't stop saying it. When you pitch the campaign to your players and they agree, the first thing you need to do is set a date. Get that train rolling down the tracks. And I recommend suggesting a specific date, or giving 2 dates to choose from. I really hate those calendar helpers that let everyone pick the days and times they're available. There are too many choices, and you get bogged down by which of the next 27 days am I actually available that I want to say I'm available. When somebody asks me to do one of these, I just tap 2 dates that seem to be popular with everyone else. Because the worst thing that happens is you pick another one. Giving away my secrets. A month is a good amount of lead time. Few people fill up their schedule more than a month or so out, so the chances of finding an open date are greater. I know, at least for me, I work best with a solid deadline, and if people are counting on me, my inner people pleaser is going to ensure I do not let them down. It gives me a sense of urgency, so I make sure I have everything I need. Granted, I do it the night before, and I'm always up early the day of, cleaning the toilet, writing my box text, figuring out the rules to fantasy field hockey. How could I forget? So starting a new campaign is a big task, but it's not impossible. And not to mention, it can be really worthwhile and fun. And if DMing isn't for you, you can just pawn the duties off on somewhere else. You can play a different game or just game or ghost the group. No shame, no shade. It's how about 99% of games end anyway. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe so the YouTube algorithm will actually show this video to other people. And while you're performing charity, head on over to Patreon and sign up. I'm only going to be able to keep making these videos with your help. And they're about to repossess my fake brick wall. So until next time, check this out. My friend Kimmy, the brilliant mind behind the Golden Enge Award-winning Decima and the head host over at Happy Jack's RPG podcast, is launching a new Kickstarter for her sci-fi game, Starscape. Starscape is the found family story of a crew traveling through space. It focuses on a group of core personalities and how their trust in one another changes over the course of their adventures. You create your crew, a ship, a bit of shared history, and then play to find out if you come together when it matters most, or fracture when faced with the challenges of an unpredictable universe. Head over to Golden Lasso Games/Starscape for more information, an actual play, and sign up for the Kickstarter. This one's gonna be a blast.